Hi, so in this video we will read about hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis HLH. I'm reading it from the edition 22 of Nelson's, volume 2, page number 31776. Let's start. Clinical manifestation. We will read this also, right? Classification and pathology from this page, but let's complete from here first. Primary FHLH and the secondary HLH have a remarkably similar, clinically indistinguishable presentation from the figure 556.11. We will read, this is the figure. Okay, we will read about it. It consists of a generalized disease process, most often with fever in 90 to 100% cases, maculopapular or petechial rashes. Most often, first one we saw is fever, second one is the maculopapular or the petechial rashes in 10 to 60%, weight loss, irritability. The initial clinical presentation can vary but is usually severe. In the case of secondary HLH, onset may be camouflaged by a primary disease process. Acute presentation of the HLH include a hyperferritinemic septic shock-like picture. Acute presentation, what happens? Hyperferritinemic septic shock-like picture. Acute respiratory distress, seizures, ataxia, focal lesions, or coma because of the CNS infiltration. Other features that are frequently present result from the bone marrow involvement and pancytopenia or hepatic dysfunction. Fine. So if someone presents acutely with this, there will be hyperferritinemic septic shock-like picture. There will be acute respiratory distress, seizures, and ataxia and focal lesions or coma. Moving ahead. This is the spectrum of the hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. HLH syndrome includes all the conditions meeting the consensus diagnostic criteria. This syndrome includes conditions that would benefit from the HLH direct immunosuppressive therapies, which are termed as the HLH disease, and those conditions that would not benefit from such therapy or require entirely different treatment termed HLH disease mimics. HLH diseases include the recognizable subgroups: familial HLH with a clear there is a subgroup called familial HLH with a clear genetic etiology, HLH associated with the malignancy, HLH as associated with the rheumatologic condition also called as the MAS, and HLH observed after immune activating therapies like the iatrogenic HLH also called as the cytokine release syndrome, HLH associated with the immune compromise, either primary immune deficiency or the treatment related immune suppression, and HLH not associated with the other specific condition. Recognition of these subcategories is valuable as this may alter the treatment. Okay, so these kinds of HLH we read: familial HLH, rheumatologic HLH, malignancy associated HLH, HLH disease mimic HLH disease, and other, and HLH with the immune compromise, iatrogenic HLH. Children with the primary HLH are generally less than 1 to 2 years old, and children with the secondary HLH typically present at an older age. But both forms may present at any age. Physical examination often reveals hepatosplenomegaly. On physical examination, there will be hepatosplenomegaly in 70 to 80%, lymphadenopathy, respiratory distress in 40 to 90%, jaundice, and symptoms of CNS involvement in 50% that are not unlike those of the aseptic meningitis, CNS vasculitis, or acute demyelinating encephalomyelitis. MRI may demonstrate a systemic T2 weighted flow attenuated inversion recovery flare hyperintensity in the gray and white matter and in the supratentorial or infratentorial regions. So what will be seen on the MRI? Hyperintensities in the gray and white matter in the supratentorial and infratentorial regions. The cerebrospinal fluid pleocytosis, 50 to 90% associated with the CNS involvement in the primary HLH, is characterized by cells that are the same phagocytic macrophages found in the peripheral blood or the bone marrow. So on the CSF, there will be pleocytosis. and CNS involvement in the primary HLH is characterized by the same phagocytic macrophages found in the peripheral blood or the bone marrow. HLH may initially or only manifest CNS symptoms. Isolated neuroinflammation may be present in the absence of cytopenia. There is neuroinflammation may be present in the absence of cytopenia, splenomegaly, or other systemic features. Approximately 35% will eventually develop diagnostic features of HLH, which is written in the table 556.6. Where is the table 556.6? Oh, it is after this. Fine, we will read it. The interval from the neurologic onset to eventual diagnosis often exceeds 2 years. From the neurologic onset to the eventual diagnosis often exceeds 2 years. In the CNS isolated disease, the diagnosis of the familial HLH is often made by whole exosome sequencing for the other disease. The diagnosis of HLH is arrived in 2 stages. Okay. The first stage is based on a set of 8 clinical and laboratory findings. What is seen in the first stage? The first stage is based on the set of 8 clinical and laboratory findings with the presence of 5 of the 8 being diagnostic of HLH. The 8 findings formulated by the Histiocyte Society are fever, first one, splenomegaly, second one, cytopenia of 2 cell lines in 90 to 100%. Third one, hypertriglyceridemia, hypofibrosinemia or hyperferritinemia more than 500 but often more than 10,000. Extremely elevated soluble CD25. This one is the sixth one. Reduced or absent NK cell activity and bone marrow. Reduced or absent NK cell activity and bone marrow, CSF or lymph node evidence of hemophagocytosis. Bone marrow, this one is the last one, right? Bone marrow or CSF or lymph node evidence of hemophagocytosis. The second stage involves, this was the first stage, okay. Now the second stage involves genetic analysis and is undertaken as quickly as possible but generally requires 2 weeks to complete and should not interfere with the initiation of treatment. The genetic finding in the family history will determine whether the diagnosis is autosomal recessive, that is the primary HLH, secondary HLH, or a genetic hybrid form of the HLH. Hemophagocytosis is not specific for HLH and should not be considered only in the context of the diagnostic criteria. No absolute clinical or the laboratory distinction can be made between the so there is no absolute clinical or laboratory distinction that can be made between the primary HLH and the secondary HLH. In some subgroups of the HLH, perforin assays may be normal. Similarly, some patients with the primary familial HLH have no known identifiable pathogenic variant, while the new genetic variant associated with the HLH continue to be discovered. In the absence of either one, a documented genetic defect coupled with the defective NK cell cytotoxicity or frank hemophagocytosis, care should be taken in making the diagnosis of secondary HLH. So in the absence of what? Either a documented genetic defect coupled with the defective NK cell cytotoxicity or frank hemophagocytosis, we should be very careful while making the diagnosis of secondary HLH given the implication to use the cytotoxic chemotherapy. The non-specific criteria indicative of inflammation used to diagnose the HLH can also be seen in the disease that are not always associated with the hemophagocytosis overwhelming acute viral infection with the appropriate T cell activation, in which the cytotoxic and the immunosuppressive therapies used in the treatment, HLH, might be contraindicated. What is written here is there is a non-specific criteria which is used to diagnose HLH. Let's see what's this. Non-specific criteria which is used to diagnose the HLH can also be seen in diseases that are not always associated with hemophagocytosis. Overwhelming acute viral infection or with appropriate T cell activation, in which the cytotoxic and the immunosuppressive therapy used in the treating HLH might be contraindicated. Okay. Macrophage activation syndrome, particularly in the context of the systemic onset juvenile idiopathic arthritis or the infection, has many similarities to HLH. Indeed, the whole exome sequencing of the patient with the systemic onset GIA or those with the fatal influenza has revealed a higher than expected incidence of HLH genes. Treatment and prognosis. Therapy for the primary HLH, that is autosomal recessive genetic disease or familial occurrence, consists of a combination of etoposide, then dexamethasone, cyclosporin and intrathecal methotrexate. It should be stressed that the pancytopenia and the presence of the infection are not contraindicated to cytotoxic or immunosuppressive therapy. It should be stressed that pancytopenia and presence of infection are not contraindicated to cytotoxic or immunosuppressive therapy. Etoposide and steroid cyclosporin or anti-thymocyte globulin for maintenance therapy. Paradoxically, they ameliorate the HLH. Emapalumab, a monoclonal antibody against the interferon gamma, is approved for the recurrent refractory or progressive familial HLH or for the patients who cannot tolerate the chemotherapy. The goal for all the therapies is to reach the point of initiating stem cell transplantation. To date, the only known potentially curative treatment for the primary HLH, that is stem cell transplantation. That is the only curative treatment. Effective in achieving cure in more than 60% of the patients. Chemotherapy is inadequate for sustained cure of primary HLH, which is ultimately fatal without transplantation. So chemotherapy is just inadequate for sustained cure of primary HLH, which is ultimately fatal without transplantation. In secondary HLH, it is critical that the underlying disease, that is infection or malignancy, can be identified and successfully treated. Infection and malignancy can be identified and successfully treated. The diagnostic distinction between the primary HLH and the secondary HLH sometimes can be based on the acute onset of the secondary HLH in the presence of an already documented infection or cancer, including leukemia. What is written here is that the diagnostic distinction between this primary and secondary can be sometimes based on the acute onset of secondary HLH in the presence of an already documented infection or cancer, including leukemia and certain autoimmune or immunodeficiency disorder. In this case, treatment of the underlying infection is coupled with the supportive care. So this HLH is occurring on an already documented infection or even cancer, including leukemias can also be present, and certain autoimmune or immunodeficiency disorders. In case treatment of the underlying infection is coupled with the supportive care, if the diagnosis is made in the setting of iatrogenic immunodeficiency or immunosuppressive, treatment should be withdrawn and supportive care instituted along with the specific therapy for the underlying infection. In many patients, the prognosis is excellent without any specific treatment other than the triggering infection. However, when a treatable infection or the other causes cannot be documented, when the clinical presentation is severe, the prognosis of secondary HLH is poor as for the primary HLH. These patients should receive identical initial 8-week chemotherapeutic approach, including etoposide, even in the face of cytopenias. In both the primary and secondary HLH, the cytotoxic effect of the etoposide on the macrophages interrupts the cytokine production, and the consequent cytokine storm, the hemophagocytic process, and the accumulation of the macrophages, all of which may contribute to the pathogenesis of the infection-associated hemophagocytic syndrome. So what is happening in both this primary and the secondary HLH? The cytotoxic effect of etoposide. We all know that etoposide has a cytotoxic effect on macrophages, interrupts this cytokine production and the consequent cytokine storm. So this this etoposide, no, it has cytotoxic effect on this macrophages, and it interrupts this etoposide. It interrupts the cytokine production and the consequent cytokine storm of the hemophagocytic process and the accumulation of macrophages, all of which may contribute to the pathogenesis of infection-associated hemophagocytic syndrome. A broad spectrum of the infectious agents, including the viruses, cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus, HHV6, fungi, protozoa, and bacteria may trigger the secondary HLH, often in the setting of immunodeficiency. A thorough evaluation for the infection should be undertaken in immunodeficient patients with the hemophagocytosis. The same syndrome may be identified in the conjunction with a rheumatologic disorder, systemic lupus erythematosus, Kawasaki disease, or a neoplasm leukemia. The same syndrome may be identified in the conjunction with this, any rheumatologic disorder or a neoplasm. In these patients, effective treatment of the underlying disease, that is infection or cancer, is critical and may itself lead to ultimate resolution of the hemophagocytosis. In addition, anakinra or the ruxolitinib has been used in patients with the secondary HLH. Let's read this also. Other histiocytes are other rare histiocytes that have been named for their clinical presentation include xanthogranuloma in the JXG, ECD, and the striking lymphadenopathy in the Rosai-Dorfman disease, sinuses, histiocytosis with the massive lymphadenopathy, JXG, and the ECD may require systemic treatment with the cytotoxic chemotherapy and the potentially MAPK pathway inhibitors, reflecting the presence of the BRAF pathogenic variant. Rosai-Dorfman disease usually is not treated, although the massive lymphadenopathy may require intervention because of the tendency to cause physical obstruction. Rare histiocytic malignancies include the acute monocytic leukemia, true malignant histiocytosis, and the histiocytic sarcoma. Also included in is the more recently identified histiocytic malignancy, ALK positive, and histiocytosis, which is a systemic histiocytic proliferation presenting as the disseminated disease in the infants. The cells bear histiocytic markers CD68 and CD163, but not those of an LCH, CD1A, BRAF, V600E. Whereas all these are rare histiocytic malignancies are referred to as the histiocytosis. Because of their monocyte macrophage lineage, they are better considered under the rubric of true proliferative malignancy of the monocyte macrophage lineage. Okay, so this was all about HLH, that is hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. Thank you. Oh wait, we have not read the table in all this. This is also important. Let's read this first. There are two figures. Yeah, the A1 is this graph one and B1 is this MRI one. So in A, frequencies of the neurologic manifestation, neuroradiologic finding in the histopathologic central nervous system biopsy results in 38 patients with the isolated CNS hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. Examples of the CNS MRI imaging in patients with the isolated CNS HLH. Upper panels T2 images in one patient from 2016 and 2017 demonstrate cerebral atrophy with diffuse white matter involvement. Neuroradiologic finding on the MRI show imaging abnormalities. Lower panels T2 imaging from other patients reveal multiple nodular lesions in the pons cerebellum and the white matter. Let's read this. The figure 1, frequency of the neurologic manifestation in the isolated CNS HLH. Gait disturbances, seizures, headache. Okay. Neurologic finding on the MRI. Let's read this once. Gait disturbances can be seen. These are the frequency of the neurologic manifestation in an isolated CNS HLH. Okay, HLH which is affecting the CNS mainly. So there can be gait disturbances, seizures, headache, limb weakness, motor impairment, visual abnormalities, speech abnormalities, vomiting, altered mental status, abnormal tone, sensory impairment, tremors, movement disorders, psychiatric symptoms, mood disorders, personality change, and cognitive impairment and regression. Second one, neuroradiologic finding on the MRI, that is diffuse multifocal white matter lesions, cerebellar involvement, periventricular changes, brainstem involvement, edema, swelling, volume loss, atrophy, spinal cord involvement, grey matter involvement, leptomeningeal enhancement, and hemorrhagic lesions. Fine. Moving ahead to the diagnostic criteria for the HLH 2004 trial and their relevance for the clinical diagnosis. Okay. So there is something called HLH 2004 entry criteria. Molecular diagnosis consistent with the HLH are, there is certain pathogenic variants, PRF1, UNC. These are all the pathogenic variants. Or in a patient with a known variant, treatment before full development of HLH may be appropriate, but the genetic studies usually just help to define the HLH recurrence risk, not the presence of active disease state. So these genetic studies, they are useful to define the HLH recurrence risk, not the presence of the active disease. Five of the 8 criteria listed below are fulfilled. So let's see. Fever of more than 38.3 degrees centigrade, splenomegaly, cytopenias affecting at least 2 of the 3 lineages in the peripheral blood, hemoglobin less than 9 gram per deciliter in infants less than 4 weeks, hemoglobin less than 10, platelets less, and neutrophils less than 1 in 1000, that means, right? Hypertriglyceridemia of more than 265 or hypofibrogenemia, hemophagocytosis in the bone marrow or spleen or lymph nodes or liver, lower absent NK cell activity, ferritin level more than 500 nanogram and elevated soluble CD25 levels, soluble okay. So this is nearly universal in untreated HLH. Fever, splenomegaly, all the splenomegaly and hepatomegaly are very common in HLH. Adenopathy is not. Splenomegaly and hepatomegaly are very common in HLH. Cytopenias are ubiquitous in the HLH. Lack of cytopenia should make one doubt a diagnosis of HLH, except in special cases of isolated CNS disease only. Hypertriglyceridemia, low fibrinogen in context of the inflammation, is a paradoxical and one of the most distinctive features of HLH. Low fibrinogen. Hemophagocytosis in the bone marrow or the spleen or lymph node or liver, not specific to HLH or essential for the diagnosis. Hemophagocytosis, no, that is not specific to HLH or essential for the diagnosis, but helpful as a disease marker. One of note, it is often not evident early. So this hemophagocytosis, no, that is not specific to HLH or essential for the diagnosis, but helpful as a disease marker. Of note, it is often not evident early after the disease onset. More modern and robust assay measuring the perforin level, this lower absent NK cell activity is the more modern and robust assay measuring the perforin levels, and its degranulation should replace this assay for reliable diagnosis of HLH. This assay is not specific for primary HLH. Most patients have much higher level than this threshold suggests. And as HLH is a T cell driven disease, this assay is extremely informative for diagnosis and response to therapy.